In this video, what we're looking at is the question, why use HTML? What's the advantage of it? First of all, what does HTML actually stand for? What does it mean? So HTML means hypertext, and that's those links which you click on. Hypertext, HT, markup, M, and language L. And it's not a programming language, it doesn't have the facilities to do programming, however it's a markup language. So what it means is we can take text and we can mark it up and say how it's going to be presented and what that text means. And so before we answer the question of why use it, we want to first of all see what this language looks like when it's being used. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build a very, very simple web page using HTML. And then we're going to study why there's an advantage to doing it the way that it's done. And so to build a web page, first of all, you type in HTML and you put it inside things called tags with a less than sign and a greater than sign at the beginning and end of each tag. And all of these have a beginning tag, which I've just written, and an end tag like that. So that there starts my web page. It says, build me a web page, and this is the start of the web page, this is the end of the web page. And then, in order to put a title, and this is the part that goes at the top of the web browser, so I need to have a head, and then inside the header I can put a title, and I will make my page all about cars. And then I have to end my head tag. And so now I can move on to the body of my web page. This is the part that goes in the main sort of white bit of your web browser. And inside this body, I'm going to start with a new paragraph, and I'm going to say there are many cars in the world, such as Ford, Ferrari, and Jaguar. And then I end my paragraph tag there. And then I want to start a new paragraph, and here's a nice looking car. Now at this point, I don't actually place, it's not like a word processed document or some photo editing software. I don't put the actual image in, I refer to the image somewhere else on the web. So there'll be another file that contains the image, and I can now refer to that within my HTML. So let's put it here. The web browser will ignore more than one space, so those repeated spaces won't get shown on the web browser. And so I say to it, put in an image, and the source of that location will be as follows. And I'm just using an image which is placed on somebody else's website. And I give it the domain name, the exact location of that image, plus the image name itself. What I can also do is I can put in hyperlinks. That's why the entire language was created. It was in order to hyperlink pages together so that you could easily find information. And in order to do a hyperlink, I use what's known as the anchor element. So I create an anchor tag, and I have href, which means the hyperlink reference. And that's just a URL. It's a location on the internet. And so I'm going to link to the location of that image again. So the same place as I just used. And it'll be interesting to see what the web browser does with this, given that I'm linking to a picture. I need to close my hyperlink, so my anchor tag there, close that. Put a full stop, and then I've got to close my paragraph. And finally, just as I have started off here, I've started off a body tag. So I need to end the body of the page there, and then end the HTML at the end. And so that there, hopefully, is a page called cars.html, which will work. And I've purposely used the most simple software possible to show this is possible. So we save our page called cars.html. And then we take a look in a web browser. So here, I'm looking at cars.html, the same location that I saved it in. And so if I press return, there we see exactly what I expected to see. And we've got a hyperlink here to the image which we have here. And so if I click on the hyperlink, it shows me just the image, and we see this is the location of that image on the internet. Now, it's interesting. This is possibly how you expected to see the web page. Maybe you expected possibly another break, and if we want to have a line break, there is a tag called BR, and that puts a line break in, and possibly that might now look more how you expected it. However, there's no reason the web browser should display it this way. Let's say that you have a computer, and this was more common sort of years or possibly decades ago, but let's say you have a computer that can't display graphics, or it's got almost no processing power. The idea was that these computers or these bits of software would still be able to read pages on the web. And so if we look here, this is a browser called Lynx. It's not been updated for a few years, but it still exists and it still works. And we can see this is the Google homepage as it appears on Lynx. Now, Lynx is only a web browser for text. It cannot display images. And because of that, it's extremely fast. It never downloads the images for you and displays them on the screen. And it will work on pretty much any computer. Now, if I say, let's go to the web page, and then I type in the page name, so there we have the page which I want to open, and when I do that, here is the same page which I developed. It's using exactly the same HTML. In fact, we can even get links to show us the HTML which it's using. So that is identical to what I typed in, even with that BR tag which I just added. And what we notice is we don't have the car now. What we have is the file name for the car. So it can't display the image, but it's at least giving us an indication of what it might be. And if I try and do that hyperlink, if I try and go forward with the hyperlink, it says down here, okay, we'll try and have a look for it. Would you like to download this file or cancel it? So although it's not going to display it, it's going to let me download my hyperlink. And if that was a hyperlink to a web page, it would have gone and visited that web page for me. Now, that was obviously a fast look at how you make HTML pages, and the purpose of this wasn't to show you exactly how to develop them, although you may have picked some of that up. What the point of this is to say, why do we bother using HTML? What's the advantage of doing the thing? And so here are some of the reasons why we use HTML. First of all, it's a common and open language. So we need computers to be able to talk to one another, and if we have an open language that everyone understands, then programmers that are going to, or developers that are going to make their web pages and their websites can use the same language as the people that are making web browsers. And everyone can have the same software and they can all read these pages. Secondly, because of its nature, we can have many browsers. And I purposely showed a browser similar to the one that you're probably used to, and a browser that's totally different to show that they can be completely different. So one was a text-only browser, but some people will use a browser that speaks the text. So a lot of things which were pushed through the internet instead of web pages didn't work as well because people that were blind wouldn't be able to read them. They wouldn't be able to read the text on it, for example. Another reason that we will use HTML is it's easy to write. No one's going to make anything for the web. Certainly when it was invented in the early 90s, no one would have made anything for it if it was a really difficult language to learn. Obviously, hypertext, then it's a bit of a clue in the name. It allows you to add hyperlinks, which is the most popular way that was developed in order to share information and get people going from page to page. We also use HTML because there's a lot of free technologies. So the language itself is free and open, and there's a lot of technologies like web servers, there's web server technologies and software that's free, there's a lot of software development tools that are free, and even when you get to programming dynamic web pages, you can still buy software, or not buy software, you can get software that's free for it. And one of the big reasons is you describe the content, not how to display it. So when my web browser decides, as it did, it decides that it's going to show me this web page like this, and it's going to put all about cars here, the web browser decides to do that. I've just told it there's a title on this page called All About Cars. It might decide that it wants to put it in the blue bit up here. It might decide that it doesn't want to have titles. It might have a lovely title down here. It's up to the web browser how it wants to do that. I've just described this content will be a title. This content will be a hyperlink. It's up to the browser to decide how it wants to render that or how it wants to display it on the screen. And one of the other things, because the internet was very, very slow in the early days compared to now, one of the major things as to why we used HTML was that it was small file sizes. Remember, we don't even include images or video with the file, we just include the basic text that's going to go in there and then how to build the web page. And that means that it's quick to download. And you see, even now, when you have newer phones, often the networks are slow. This is on smartphones or tablets. Because people use HTML, those pages are very quick, whereas the ones which have video on or they have other applications like Flash can often be very slow because they have to download all those images and everything else. And while there are ways around doing that, they have a complicated programming language to get around it. So those are all the reasons why we use HTML, and hopefully that's given you some idea as to the language and why it became extremely popular for the web.